Hello everyone, I'm Yogesh Kumar and welcome to my video presentation for task 3 of the subject Sustainable Energy Resources. This task builds upon my previous report and also allows me to reflect on Australia's energy future compare the peer approaches to provide critical feedback, and I'll share my learning experience in the end. In this video, I'll begin by outlining what a sustainable energy future looks like for Australia. I will, I will present my proposed energy portfolio and explain the strategies, barriers, and opportunities involved. And then I'll be comparing the two anonymous peer reports with my own report, followed by a constructive feedback. And finally, I'll be reflecting on what I've learned throughout this subject, including how we have used Gen AI to support my understanding. Let's begin. So let's begin with where Australia currently stands. As of 2023, renewables made up just under 33% of Australia's electricity generation. Now, that might sound decent, but when you consider the federal target of 82% renewables by 2035, we've got a long hill to climb in just over a decade. Now, breaking that down, coal still generates about 50% of Australia's electricity nationally, and even though several major coal power plants like Slidell and Ererling are set to retire before 2030, gas contributed around 18%, and which is mainly used for peaking and firming. And on the renewable side, solar, both rooftop and utility scale, is growing fast, now counting around 15%, while the wind delivers around 11%. And the key challenge here, I feel, is not increasing the renewable generation, but rather replacing it with a dispatchable fossil generation with clean, flexible, and reliable alternatives. That includes not just wind and solar, but also grid interconnections and smart demand side management. Transition is underway, yes, but with major initiatives like Rewiring the Nation, which is a $20 billion plan to overhaul the transmission network, the Capacity Investment Scheme, which underwrites the large-scale energy projects, and also there are many state-level plans going on, such as the Victoria offshore wind targets or the NSW's renewable energy zones. But I feel policy isn't enough. The market, the infrastructure, and the social license all will have a work in sync. Right now, the grid congestion, project delays, transmission bottlenecks are slowing the progress. So, what does it mean? Well, it means that we need energy portfolios that are not just green, but also firm, flexible, realistic, which is exactly what my proposed mix aims to achieve. Now, before deciding what kind of energy future we want, we need to understand the trade offs. And that's where the Energy Trilemma comes in. It's a framework that is developed by the World Energy Council that evaluates energy systems across three pillars basically: security, equity, and sustainability. Now, security. Can we consider meeting demand even in emergencies? Equity. Is energy affordable and accessible for everyone? And sustainability is how environmentally responsible is our system. Now, the challenge? Well, improving one often affects the others, right? It's like trying to keep three spinning plates in balance. One wobble, and the whole system can fall apart. Now let's look at Australia's scorecard. We do quite well on equity with a score of 96.8 out of 100. Electricity is available to nearly everyone, and the prices, well, which are rising, are still relatively affordable for most. But our security score is only 66.6. That is because our system still relies heavily on aging coal plants and our renewable infrastructure isn't fully backed by firming capacity or grid resilience. On sustainability, we are also behind at 64.4 due to high emissions from fossil fuels and slow progress in scaling renewables and reducing the grid dependency on gas. So, this shows a clear imbalance. While we have made energy accessible, we haven't made it clean and resilient enough. So, the question becomes, how do we improve the sustainability without undermining equity or security? And that's the question my proposed mix tries to answer. In the next slide, I'll show you how I plan to rebalance the trilemma. using a strategic mix of renewable storage and transitional support. So we have seen that where Australia currently stands, and the next question is what is being done about it? Well, Australian government has set an ambitious target of 82% renewables by 2035, net zero emissions by 2050. These targets are bold but achievable if backed by the right mixture of infrastructure, investment, and policy. Now, let me walk you through my proposed energy portfolio, designed not only to meet Australia's 82% renewables target, but also to balance the energy trilemma, security, equity, and sustainability. Now let's understand the mix first. 40% wind. Well, wind is the backbone of the system, so why so much wind? Because it simply works. Australia's southern regions like South Australia, Victoria, Tasmania uh, have among the world's best wind profiles globally. I'm also proposing a 30% solar PV. Solar is cheap, it's fast to deploy, it's scalable from rooftop to utility scale. I'm also proposing 10% hydro. We're not building massive new dams, just expanding maybe the Snowy Hydro project, and we're also planning to optimize the existing assets. Now, I'm also proposing a 10% of BESS. Well, batteries don't generate power, yes, but they do shape it. So discharging when demand peaks. I'm also proposing a 10% gas, and this is the transition layer, like a backup for nights with no sun or wind. Now, as we know, wind is the powerhouse of this mix. It offers one of the highest capacity factors like any renewables in Australia. Therefore, I've kept 40% for the wind, and the next is solar, 30%. I'll just repeat my percentages again before I run out of time. Gas, 10%, hydro, 10%, and battery, 10%. Okay, now, why do I believe this mix can actually work? Well, not just in theory, but in practice. First of all, Australia is built on natural strengths. We have consistent wind in the southern and offshore regions, and intense solar across central and western states, and also legacy hydro systems that can be modernized. So this portfolio takes full advantage of those geographical uh, uh, gifts that we have, and it doesn't fight the terrain, it works with it. Secondly, this mix is technologically and economically feasible. Solar and wind are now the cheapest forms of electricity in Australia, and even factoring in storage, battery costs have dropped to somewhere around 85% over the last decade. And the large scale BESS projects are already underway. Now, third, I feel it provides reliability and flexibility. Uh, Also, this isn't only about meeting fancy targets. It's about building a realistic, flexible backbone for Australia's future. Now, moving on to the first peer report that I reviewed, which was the report 4. This report proposed a strong mix of 40% solar, 30 wind, 20% hydro, and 10% fossil with CCS. Now, it's clear that the student took a technically detailed approach, and here are some of the key strengths that outstood by me. First, the inclusion of both pumped hydro storage and hydrogen as firming options was impressive. The report correctly identified the pumped hydro as a mature long duration storage technology and combined it with hydrogen to address the seasonal variability. That's the level of depth I appreciated. Second, the report strongly aligned with the government's policy referencing, and it referenced a lot of government schemes. Third, the portfolio avoided extremes like balancing technologies rather than focusing too much only on one. So it didn't just go all in on solar or wind, which showed quite thoughtful planning. The second report, which I reviewed, took a different but still a valid approach. Their portfolio focused on high solar penetration. They focused on 50% solar, 30% wind, 10% hydro, and 10% gas with CCS. Now, the first impression I had was that the report did make a strong economic argument. It focused on declining cost of solar and the fact that rooftop PV is already heavily adopted in Australia. It learned on existing infrastructure and cost trends, which is a smart and realistic approach. Second, I appreciated the data-driven layout of the report. Third, it did consider grid integration, including a brief, thoughtful mention on of virtual power plants and peer-to-peer trading, which showed an understanding that generation isn't enough. The distribution and control side matters too. Okay. Now, let's compare the three proposed portfolios. My proposal, the report 4, and the report 9, which I reviewed. While report 4 focused on a balance and resilience, it offered a thoughtful mix of solar, wind, hydro, and fossil with CCS, and uniquely included hydrogen and pumped hydro as long duration. But the trade-off was high system complexity and cost. It was more infrastructure heavy and didn't explore demand solutions or affordability in depth. Report 9, on the other hand, took the cost first approach. It leaned heavily into solar at 50%, backed by wind and hydro and gas, and this made sense in an economic perspective, but especially considering Australia's massive rooftop PV take. Now, my portfolio, which blends 40% wind, 30% solar, 10% hydro, 10% battery, and 10% gas, tries to strike a middle ground. Compared to report 4, my mix reduces complexity while ensuring flexibility through the battery system. And if I compare my report to the 9, it strengthens reliability with a more balanced solar wind split dedicated firming solutions. This project has been one of the most meaningful learning experience I've had in my postgraduate journey so far. And I remember as a start of the semester, my understanding of sustainable energy was mostly technical, focusing on power flow, hardware, control systems, etc. However, while learning the subject, I did realize that it's also about policy, economics, social equity, and environmental trade-offs that account for the long-term resilience. One key challenging uh, thing was to try and balance the idealism with realism, and it was a bit difficult initially to create a 100% clean energy portfolio because the real world demands backup and affordability along with reliability. Along with that, uh, I did learn how to do good work in a team. We had an excellent team throughout the semester. Well, we worked on green hydrogen for the first half of the semester. So yeah, I did learn a lot because it was a big team and everybody just contributed. We did have some challenges, but everybody did well in the end, I feel. As of collaboration, while this task was individual, as I said, my classmates were amazing, and the professor was amazing. Uh, Also, I would like to shed some light on the use of generative AI for my projects. Yes, I did use generated AI tools like ChatGPT, and how I used them was to frame my ideas, to give them a shape. Also, I used them to generate pictures or give me the path where I feel I was lacking a little. Uh, yeah. In closing, now I feel more confident not just as a student of energy, but also as a contributor to Australia's translation towards a cleaner, fairer, and more secure energy future. Thank you.